Hey, you guys, it's me, Sweets, coming live from the Artz Over Anxiety workshop. I'm here with two nice gentlemen, and I'm so blessed to be here today. They're from the Father Bills and Mainstream, and their slogan is, "Nobody should be left homeless." Come on, somebody. I love that. I love
Thank
that.
you, Sweets.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Jeff Gagnon. I'm the Associate Director of Family Programs, Prevention, and Diversion. I've been with Father Bills for about 5 years now.
Excellent. And I'm John Lanham, the Chief Operating Officer at Father Bills in Mainspring. Been with the company for this will be my 15th year in July.
Really?
Yeah.
Blessings,
Yeah.
blessings. How long you been?
5 years.
5
with the
years.
agency. Yep.
Okay. That's beautiful. I want to welcome you both here
Thank you.
thank you for stopping by.
Absolutely.
And as we get jobs, we be on journeys that lead us to different, parts of our life and chapters. Can you tell me a little bit of your journey to get in your position here at Father Bills?
Probably started back when I was even a teenager. I was like a youth counselor in high school, and I always knew that I didn't have a special skill or talent. I wasn't a great athlete or musician, but I always enjoyed helping people.
Nice.
And I remember, and I just kind of fell into that in college with studying for my degree, and I just kind of fell into the field of helping people. And it's been a career ever since.
Wow.
33 years later.
Wow. And still looking
Yeah.
good. High five, high five. Yes, okay.
I'm blushing, thank you.
Yes, we'll blush. Okay. Hello. And how about you?
Similar to Jeff, I grew up with parents who were both in the human service, kind of more on the side of clinical psychology therapy side of things, helping people. But both my brother and I were very adamant growing up we were not going to go into human services. I was doing my undergrad in history, thinking about going to law school, very different path. And just in doing some volunteer work, just really found a passion for engaging with people that, were either unhoused or dealing with poverty and all the different challenges that come there. So, went to grad school for social work, and then once I finished there, went to Father Bills in Mainspring, really as my first, job out of grad school, looking at, okay, how do I just help get engaged in a community like this and start working? So, yeah, it's been a phenomenal career, for me, just super rewarding, finding an opportunity to work with an agency that's willing to always kind of take chances and look for solutions as opposed to just trying to do the same thing every day. Yeah.
Congratulations
Thank
for
you.
you. Thank God. We are blessed to have you guys there at Father Bills and Mainstream. I'm telling you. Now, when we look at the programs that Father Bill has to offer, and I know at one point in my life I was homeless, right? And one thing about it, I didn't know what resources were out there. So I felt trapped. I felt like I didn't have anywhere to go or nowhere to turn, So is there any way that you can talk to the people and tell them about the programs, and say if I was at risk of losing my housing right now, what program you have to offer to help me?
So there's a couple different programs, and I'll let Jeff talk about the family ones, but if you're an individual adult, that doesn't have children with them, we have our emergency shelters. So we have one here in Brockton at Mainspring House, which many people know. We have our Yawkey Housing Resource Center in Quincy, and then we also do some seasonal sheltering in Plymouth. Those are always available for people who need an emergency place to stay. They don't have to have an ID to come in. You don't have to have a referral. You can literally just show up and get access to the services that night. But recently, over the past couple of years, we have been investing in more staff to do what we're calling diversion work.
Okay.
And so for this instance you mentioned, if you're finding yourself falling behind on rent, or maybe you're a young adult and you're fighting with your family, you're not sure if it's a safe place to stay, having diversion workers who work out of the shelter that people can call, talk to, meet with, and say, what's an option? We want people to come to the shelters for resources, not just a bed. And finding ways, talking to someone who might know a way to find a solution to their housing, or at least just process, okay, what would the next steps be? How do we help you find your own apartment? What would it cost? I mean, particularly for our young adults, it's hard for them to understand how expensive rent can be.
They don't have a clue.
They don't
They
know.
are clueless, and sometimes some grown people are clueless
Absolutely.
too. Okay.
One of the fastest growing groups we have in shelter is elders, people who are 60 and older. We have people, sadly, in their 70s or their 80s, first time in shelter, and maybe they've owned their home for a really long time. they can't keep up with either taxes or the upkeep of the house. It gets either condemned or foreclosed on, and they find themselves seeking shelter for the first time. They haven't had to pay rent in many years. They don't know what those costs are. So helping them just navigate that and figuring out how do we hopefully avoid you having to stay in shelter, but get the resources in front of you. So our shelters have diversion workers that call and talk to people every day. We want people to call and just say, here's my story, here's where I'm at, and see what we can do.
Wow, that makes me want to cry. Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
that is so good. And at the end, I'm gonna put up all the shelter numbers and everything like that.
you.
So can you tell? He said he talked about the individuals. Can you talk about the family part?
Yeah.
So the family side is a little bit different in terms of the referral process and how families would enter shelter. But just like the individual side, there's a really robust continuum of services throughout family programs. It's the state of Massachusetts, the department, let's say the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, who determines whether or not families qualify for family shelter.
Okay.
So if there's a family who's homeless or about to be homeless, they need to go, if they're here in Brockton, they can go down to their DTA office right here on Main Street and meet with what's called an HLC homeless coordinator, who will then complete an assessment on them to see if they qualify for family shelter or not.
That's a great thing.
Yeah, so it's a little different on the family side than the individual side. The state is somewhat of the gatekeeper of families entering shelter.
Now let me ask you, being that if a person comes to you for help and it's the state's decision, do you ever get in that position if you can't help them and the DTA can't? How do you deal with that, like anxiety? Do you have anxiety about that? And I want to talk to you too about your situation dealing with elders.
It definitely raises the stakes
Okay.
of the situation. But one thing I love about Father Bill's is we've pretty much seen most scenarios and situations that have occurred, so we kind of know how to navigate that.
Okay.
And we really are problem solvers. I wanna
Okay,
say.
yes.
And we're very creative in coming up with solutions, even if they're temporary to get someone to the next step.
Okay.
I think we're all pretty much skilled in that area.
That's
so
nice.
yeah, we work hard. We're very creative.
Okay.
In working with, outside providers. I've got the situation. Can you help? Well, let me think this through. And providing solutions and alternatives for families.
That's good. That y'all don't take no for an answer.
No, we really don't.
All right.
We keep going at it. We keep
Yeah.
going at it.
Well, you know what? Shout out to you guys. If sometimes you don't get we appreciate you from people, but I'm here today to tell you from all those people that y'all help. We appreciate you and love you because at times we don't have nobody to go to and we're embarrassed. Can I say that? No matter what stage you're in, for me, for my addiction, having to go in rehab. I said, how can I be embarrassed about getting help to go and don't want to? I'm going down south. But when I'm out here drinking and maybe getting in some situation, I ain't embarrassed about that, right? So even being homeless with my kids, that was a hard pill to swallow.
Absolutely.
Saying, okay, I'm got to go in the shelter, but not only that, a battered woman's shelter when I did at the time.
We also pretty much meet people when we first meet people, they're at the lowest they have ever been.
Rock
They don't
bottom.
have family, they don't have friends that they can rely on for a simple roof over their head for the night. So part of our job is working with people over time to help build them back up and provide them options.
Right.
And that's what we need. I remember when I tried to get clean 3 times in a row, but like I said, one time I did it for my mom so she could shut up, right? Because I'm not an alcoholic. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Second time, I worked at City Hall. I was 17. I didn't know what I had when I had it. I was a junior engineering aide. If I would have stuck with it, we always look back and say, "Dang, I fumbled the ball back then."
Yeah.
But wherever my life has led me to be here.
Right.
So I'll take the good with the bad, you know what I mean? But when I decided to get clean that 3rd time, I said, don't send me nowhere with no swans in the river. I went to High Point. It was too nice. But I said, I am a professional alcoholic. Oh my God. I got there, the swans, the breakfast, and the place is so nice, like a cabin. I said, I can get out of here and I can drain coolers.
Yeah.
No. And I was right back drinking Absolute, acting like an absolute fool. You know what I mean? And the last time I went, and I love you guys so much because I did get clean at the Kingston House Rescue Mission. Because I told them, put me at the grimiest place ever that you could find. Not that, you know, when I say grimy, I'm talking about like, there was cots. When I walked in there, it was cots. I came from Demick Street. Then I went there, and it was cots. Like from MASH. Am I telling my age now? From MASH.
I remember.
And the blankets was wool. I said, okay. I put my bags down, and I said, I don't need a 30-day. I don't need a 60-day. I need a year program. So I committed myself to that program for a year. And being in that mission where I got baptized when I was there. I started cleaning the toilets, the cots for the people. By the time I left, I was working up in the top with everybody else upstairs in the ministry. So I'm here with you guys on a different angle to tell people if you need help and you got Father Bills in mainstream, if you're out here in this area, hey, they got shelters in Quincy, and where's another one? In Plymouth. You know, they're all over. You got somebody that you could come and talk to that will help you. So now, food. That's a big thing nowadays. Woo! I went grocery shopping and the egg. Oh Lord! I said, "Wow, I'm gonna be buying one egg at a time."
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
So when a person, and I know this part too, you know, working with what you got, and you don't have much. I've been there on welfare, and in times when I was in domestic violence situations, being in a situation, oh, I'm leaving, and you got all the money, you know, and I'm there trying to work with what I got. When people are in hard situations, can you tell them what food programs do you got?
Sure. Most of our food programs really is for people like being served at our shelters. So each of our shelters does 3 meals a day. You know, we have cooks on site that are cooking 365 days a year. And so there's always going to be food provided for the people
Every
that
day?
Every day. The building is staffed 24/7. They do not close. Like, doesn't matter holidays.
Now,
like, they're always open.
Where is this?
So 54 North Main Street here in Brockton, that's Mainspring House. That's right down the road from where we're at now. But then in Quincy, we have 39 Broad Street in Quincy for our Yawkey Housing Resource Center. We also have some congregate family shelters as well. But as Jeff said, those are placed by families through the state that they're getting there. I think the other piece that we do a lot of is we operate a lot of housing units across the South Shore region. We're up to almost 800 units. And what every single person in one of those units has a case manager, and part of their job is to help that person with food insecurity. So it's really trying to figure out if you live in Wareham or you live in Weymouth or, you know, Hingham, wherever that unit may be, what's the food resources around you? So the case manager may drive them to the food pantry, you know, take them to the grocery store because it's too far from their unit, or help them with budgeting. Just the small things of how do we make sure you have, you know, the right food, you know, that is on site so you can stabilize in housing, because that's a big focus for us. We want people to move into housing as soon as possible, but we know we also want to make sure they have the right resources around them to support them in that housing so they don't fall back into being unhoused or, you know, some of the struggles that they're dealing with.
That's so nice. I swear to God, I got tears. I got to hold them back, y'all. Ooh, ooh. Oh, my goodness. That's such a beautiful thing. And tell me something. And I got a chance to have a look at the veterans when I was in the Kingston House because the VA is right down, and I had meetings there. And I always say God put you in different places for different reasons. I'm a very observant person. And when I was there, I felt saddened, you know, because I heard a lot of different veteran stories. And I'm like, wow, how can y'all be treated like this? And how can you be in this situation after you done fought for the country?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's right.
It's something that just like, it's a dagger to the heart. So can you tell me a little bit, if I was a veteran and I was in a situation and I came to you, what would the steps would I have to take to get some help?
So fortunately, we have up in Quincy and here in Brockton designated staff to work specifically with veterans.
Nice.
So they're advocates, they're a resource, a support to veterans coming into shelter. What they'll do is work with them for a period of time, again, to build them back up, with the eventual goal of trying to access if there's any services or resources that the VA can offer them, such as like housing vouchers, a VASH housing voucher, to work with them to obtain that. If not, to try to get them in our housing.
Wow.
Yeah, we have specific housing just for veterans spread out across the region. And one of the things we've also recently started doing is we see a lot of our older veterans who are getting hospitalized at the VA and may need to step down into like an acute medical setting. And so we've created a respite space at the shelters specifically for veterans to be able to come there. It's not a hospital bed, it's not a medical unit per se, but it's a more private, quieter space than our kind of general dorm area. So it allows the veterans to have a place to recover, have a visiting nurse come, meet with their case manager, and hopefully move forward a little bit quicker.
Oh my God, let me take y'all hands. Y'all are angels. See, I got angels right here amongst me, okay? That's a beautiful thing. It's so nice. Now, I know when people come there, I know you have a lot of other resources, but right now, I want to talk about, you guys got a new building up and coming?
We do. So about a year and a half ago, we opened a new housing resource center in Quincy. We had a very old building in Quincy that had been used as a shelter for about 35 years. And we had an opportunity to build a brand new shelter and housing development right next door to it. The city of Quincy was developing a new police department, and so we had this opportunity to work with them on it. That's been up and running, and it is the model of shelter and housing that we would like for Father Bill's of Mainspring to continue to develop, but we're also sharing that with the rest of the state. We've had lots of providers come to see the space because it is, one, just from a building side, it's fully handicap accessible, it has the right space, it has a health clinic on site that a community health center is staffing. We have those diversion workers that I mentioned, outreach workers, case managers, but we also tie in housing to the building. So the Quincy site has 120 beds. We also have 30 efficiency apartments, like on site where people can be housed and have all the resources there. We're really excited that we've been developing the same thing in Brockton. So over near the VA on Manley Street, we're developing a new housing resource center that will have about 130 beds, respite space for the veterans and others, as well as 32 apartments and the full health clinic that Brockton Neighborhood Health Center will run. So it is going to be a beautiful new site. We're hoping that it's opening up in April. We're going through those final inspections right now, but it's going to just be a tremendous resource, I think, for the community, as well as like really helping people to have just a much more peaceful, restful place to stay as they need it.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
God bless you.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. And can you tell if the people, if I was like interested, for all the people who might be interested, what is the process, what they go through? Because that would be a problem for me as when I give you guys an example, the Harriet Tubman building in Boston, tear it down. I was in there, and first time I ever been in a rally. So I walked in one way, saying, "Come on, don't tear down the Harriet. It's been here since 1919 with all so much history." And being an architect, I could look up in the ceiling where it was holes and waterlogged, and I'm like, this building is really falling apart. And hearing from people like you guys who had centers and places where they could come and help, it's like it's cold and it's and all these things. And I went out a different way, like okay, at least somebody's here to restore it. They promised some things to the community, and they said we'll give. I said, listen, ignorance run rampant, right? If the community doesn't know about the architecture, and you guys don't know about the community, right? So on both parts, it's ignorance. So could you come back and at least, give the apartments that people were here, give them back to them? And I know you're gonna make some of them condos. They was like, yeah, we're gonna give this, that, and there will be 11 apartments for artists. We're giving away. I said, well, glory. Where do I sign up? I said, oh, be in the Harriet Tubman house. Everybody called me, I'm the new reincarnated Harriet, because I help everybody. My cousin said, there you go, Harriet. So my thing is I went inside one day, and they said, ma'am, you need a hard hat. I said, I'm trying to find out how to sign up for the apartments. So can you tell the people, because that always have a person in like, where do I go?
So I think that first, when someone is facing homelessness, the first thing they need to do is get to a homeless shelter, call Father Bill's in Mainspring, call the Quincy Housing Resource Center, call Mainspring House, and just ask about the process.
Yeah.
Okay.
It can be very scary, probably intimidating at 1st, but both of those shelters are staffed 24/7. They're relatively safe places to be.
Yeah.
There's many staff there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to start the process of getting in the door, getting acclimated, they'll have a meal, a shower, a roof over their head for as long as they want,
Right.
until they either qualify for housing or a voucher comes up through the town or the state.
Okay.
But the first thing they need to do is reach out.
Reach out. Guys, you hear it. A closed mouth don't get fed, correct?
Right.
So
I like
if
that.
you need anything out here, please, Father Bills and Mainstream is the, excuse me, we'll cut that. Father Bills and Mainspring, okay, is the place to go. They have so many options with so much help for you guys. We're going to take a pause for the cause, and we'll come right back. And yeah, thank you for coming to the Artz Over Anxiety Woosah Lounge. This is part 1. We're going to come right back with part 2, where we're going to ease it down with a craft. Thank you.